Okay, I have a 2008 Mazda 6 here. This has the 2.3 liter in it, and I'm going to be replacing the transmission in this. And what had happened, it lost fourth and fifth gear, and it has no reverse whatsoever. So you get above third gear, it just starts slipping. So we're going to be replacing the transmission. I've got the replacement sitting right here, and this just gives you a look. This thing is not very big, and I think it said it weighed about 250 pounds or so on the slip. So anyways, we're going to get started. I'm just going to be, I don't know how detailed I'm going to get, but I'm definitely going to be doing a lot of steps in here and showing what I'm doing. And I'm kind of undecided if I want to take the whole engine and everything out together, or try to get the transmission in there without doing that at this point. But I'm just going to figure it out. So we're just going to get started at this. And this car has close to 200,000 on it, so definitely needs another transmission. This one here is I think around 100,000 miles on it, so it's not too bad. And we'll be putting a new filter and everything in there. So like I said, if you have one of these cars, your transmission goes out, if you try to get it rebuilt, or hire it out, you're probably looking at several $1,000s. Either way, it's going to be a lot of money. By comparison, if you can do this yourself, I think I got this was like $450 for this transmission. A really good deal, and 100,000 miles is not bad. And it's been run tested and guaranteed to work and everything else. And I just ordered this one from eBay. I've gotten several through there, and they're pretty good. Like I said, it's backed and warranted and everything. So anyways, I'm just going to go ahead and get started. And like I said, I'll just be doing showing, documenting as I go. And so I don't know how detailed I'm going to get, but I'm going to try to be as detailed as I can. Okay, so at this point we've just got the CV axles out, and that's all I've worked on. Haven't even started up here. I was looking at it. I believe I'm going to go ahead and come through the top and just take everything out the top. It's just going to look like to me more work to try to remove the frame on the bottom and deal with all that rack and pinion and everything. So I think I'm just going to go out the top like I normally do. So I'm just going to get started removing a lot of things just so I can get to the motor mounts, and we'll go ahead and get the battery disconnected. And I'm just going to be working on some minor things. We'll get the coolant drained, and just work on disconnecting some hoses and stuff at this point, and just kind of labeling things. And I'll just follow up periodically here. Okay, your fuel line just has this little plastic locking tab. You can just slip that off there, and it pulls right off, and just put that back on there so you don't lose it. The drain plug for your antifreeze is right here in the middle. Down here you got a little Phillips screw that comes right out of there, and you just drain it right there in the center. And said I'm just labeling a few things and disconnecting these coolant lines and stuff right now. And I'll just probably disconnect my heater hoses right up there at the firewall. And another thing that I was thinking about, because this exhaust disconnects right down there, and I'm concerned about clearance up here, and I don't want to take the entire exhaust manifold off of there. So what I'm thinking is just taking this front end and pulling it off. That way I can just come out and have slack. So you could do it either way. Like I said, if you want to, you just take that exhaust manifold off and you'd have plenty of room, but I think I'm going to remove this front. That way I can just leave that attached without having to do any more than I have to. And so I've got the coolant drain, so I can, you know, unhook the radiator, the transmission lines, no big deal. I don't have any Freon in my system, so I'm not worried about the condenser, but you could leave it attached if you had to. But I think that's what I'm going to wind up doing here, but I'm just going to keep, I'm going to try to get everything disconnected up here that needs to be disconnected first. I'm fixing to remove this battery box. Looks like a couple of 10 millimeters down in there. I'm just removing these wire harnesses. You just got a 10 millimeter. Just mark them to their respective location. Just pop these little tabs out right here that are holding it. And this one here's got a little clip you press in and pull up. And you can just work that out of there, and we're just starting to work all these loose. We got a ground up here as well. So just make sure to mark stuff. Okay, so we're still working on these wires. Now this harness running from this side, we're going to disconnect from the transmission here. And I've just been disconnecting and labeling all these. There is also a ground right here, right there, that's got a 10 millimeter you got to take loose. I've got these disconnected. Got the coil packs disconnected, and then this will just flop back over here out of the way. So I'm just going to go ahead and get this ground, and then we'll look and see what we want to do next here. I think while we're down here at this side, we're going to get down here on these 10 millimeters that are holding this shifter cable. Let's go ahead and take those two out. And we got a clip down there, a little spring clip you can see on that. We just need to remove that. It's really easy to remove, and then we can just slide that off, or we should be able to anyway. So I just got that shifter cable loose, and I just left the spring on that down there so I'm not losing it. And we just have to, we'll just route it through here when we go to pulling this out here. Okay, I got my heater core hoses loose. They're pretty tight on there, really glued on. I've been working on this bumper now. I just wanted to give you the rundown on it. This flap screws to the bumper back here. You got like a screw here on each side. You got like a little plastic pop there. You got a screw that screws it down, a screw here, and a little pop rivet thing. So the screw over here, and then it just, you know, pops into this. And then underneath, as far as that goes, there's just a couple of 10 millimeters up under here that hold it. So it seems like a lot, but it's really not a whole lot to these bumpers. And other than just getting a few wires loose, this thing is ready to come off here. So I'm going to go ahead and get this removed, and it's just going to clear up a lot of room for me here. Okay, I just wanted to show you, I've just removed this first headlight. There is 1, 2, 10 millimeters. There's one over here, and then you come down and we've got 1 and 2 right there. So that's what you have to remove to get that out. Okay, now we're just getting this brace out of the way. We've got 4, we got 2 up top and those 2 down in the bottom. And we're going to be able to remove this entire. So we've got a couple of 10s right here we'll need to get as well. Okay, so we got that brace set out of the way over there. There was a couple more hidden down here behind these flaps that had to come out along with these. Now, like I always say, put the screws and bolts back where they came from so you don't get them confused and mixed up. If you can, just put them right back where they came from. Okay, I've disconnected these few transmission cooler lines. I'm getting ready to take these top 2 out, and I propped my hood up. And I went ahead and I got the AC. Like I said, my system doesn't have nothing in it. I just taped them off. I taped this end off, took it loose there. And the trickiest part of this is there's just all these wires running on the front of that fan. It's going to have to be dealt with. So I'm going to go ahead and get this loose and kind of set it down here a little bit and then go to working on disconnecting those wires from the front of these fans. But this is really not too much trouble, and I'm fixing to clear up all this space here. You disconnect this Freon line on this bracket right here to this 10 millimeter. Okay, there's a few more wire connections here. I got to get this unhooked. Unclip this. It's got a clip right here, and it was clipped in behind this. I had to take this loose, and that will undo that. This has got a harness right here. Just unclip that. But we're going to go ahead and just get these, and that should free up the harness. I've got them disconnected from the fans and everything up here now. Okay, this hood pop runs right in here where this coolant spout is, right through there. That comes out the front, and you can disconnect it from this thing right here just by popping up on that. And I'm just going to feed it right back through there. And now I should be able to kind of get this down here. I've got most of all of the wires. Just got the coolant hose there. I can very easily get that now. So we'll go ahead and get this disconnected and just set this. And you can see the difference here we're working with. And looks like we got something missing here. Didn't even notice that before. But anyways, this has cleared up a lot of room, so it's going to make things a lot easier. I can get in here, and only thing I've got is get the exhaust in the back disconnected. Got most of the wires. These mounts aren't any problem. And I've got all the coolant drained and everything, so we're going to go ahead and just keep at it here. Okay, so I just took the 2 bolts out of the exhaust back there, and now the engine's free. It's just 2 of those. It's a what was it, a 14 millimeters, 2 of those. And I just used an extension on my impact laying underneath the car there. Those are pretty easy. Okay, so underneath the car here, this is where it connects right here with this part. I just disconnected that. Okay, the next thing I'm getting ready to remove is this power steering off of here. I'm just going to take the 4 bolts. It's got 2 down here on the bottom, or maybe, I don't know, it's so much grease there, I can't tell, maybe just 1 right there. We're fixing to take these loose, and the belt tensioner is right back here on the back side. Had to go ahead and pop that belt off of there. Okay, so it's just the 3 bolts. One on the bottom there. I'm going to go ahead and take this out of the way. Looks like we've got a connector right here. Need to push down and disconnect. Okay, another thing I'm going to do before I get my lift hooked up to it here is I'm going to come down here on the bottom and go ahead and take out these lower bolts that are here, because when I get it up onto my truck there, it's going to be harder to get to these without lifting it back up again. So I'm going to go ahead and just take these lower ones out, and then I'm going to go ahead and we're going to get up here, and we've got a couple of lift points that are easy to get to up here, and we're just going to attach to that. Okay, these bolts under here are 1/2 inch. Got one here on this side, and then we got one here, one there. I'm just taking these 3 out for now. Okay, so I just run a chain back through here and bolted it and run it up to this front lift. Okay, we got 3 mounts, but I'm back here in the center of this car, and I'm going to go ahead and remove this bolt that's right here. I'm going to remove that. Looks like I'll need to get a wrench on this end and a socket on that end. We're going to just remove it right here and just kind of swing it down, and then we'll get on the ones up top. Got an 18 to hold it, and I used a 15 to get it loose with. We're just going to take that out. We should be able, this will just slip on down here. So when we lift it up, it's going to slip right out of that, so we'll get on these upper. Okay, I've got tension on the engine, so I'm going to go ahead. These are 18s. I'm just going to take all these top here loose first. Okay, so after taking those off, I just essentially just slipped that off the top, so I've got that loose now. We're going to come over here and get this one now. Because I'm hooked onto here, this side's going to want to drop down a lot, so it shouldn't hit anything here, but it's definitely going to lean. So I'm just going to take it loose slowly on this side over here. Okay, just as a precaution, while I was taking this loose, I decided to go ahead and just put a jack with a block there just to keep that from trying to drop down too quick. And see, we're gonna have to take it loose here, but I need to get up here and get these as well to get it out of my way real good. So I guess we'll take this bolt out, get these 2 here, and then we'll take this one out, and then just work on getting to the others, because I want to get it completely out of my way so it's not hanging up on anything, or at least get the most of it out of the way. And these over here are 17s, by the way, and there is 3 of them. However, this one here was missing. There's also these little centering things that you don't want to lose. Like I said, this one up here is completely missing, so I'll have to see about locating one of those. Okay, so now I'm just removing this bolt, and it's got a locking deal back there that'll fall off when you take it loose. Just don't lose that. We'll just go ahead and get this out of the way now. Okay, so the replacement transmission actually has this entire bracket. I didn't realize it, so I don't have to worry about hunting down those bolts or nuts or anything. It's a good thing is this front one was, the threads were boogered up as well, so Okay, I think I'm just going to leave this as is for now. And I've got, like I said, I got all the mounts loose as it is. The power steering's just laid over there, out of the way. If you would have to move your AC compressor if it was charged and you wanted to keep it that way. You would need to remove your AC compressor and drop it down out of the way with the lines. But mine's not, so it's just all staying attached. So I'm just going to go ahead and start lifting this up, and we don't have to go very high here to clear this stuff. Okay, over here on this passenger side, there's one more connection right there, close to this compressor, that I have to unhook right here. Just a 10 millimeter, and we're going to go ahead and just tape those ends off there. And you're always going to forget something when you're pulling the engine, but when you lift it up a little bit, you'll know. When you start looking around, you'll find it. Okay, I'm just lifting it up and out of here. Said only thing I had to remove was the Freon line that I forgot over there. And you can see how it's clearing back here. And you can see it's not going to take much to clear this front here, and I can turn it whichever way I want now that that exhaust is clearing in the back. And this here is kind of tilting down as it's coming off of my jack there, so I'm going to have a little bit of tilt coming out. And then I'm just going to take and set it up over here and put it together in my truck. I've got a lot of slack here. I can move this engine whichever way I want. I'm just now starting to hit the hood here, so it'll have to go up a little bit higher. But I can push this engine back and forth whichever way I want. I've got lots of slack here, and we've pretty much got it cleared here at this point, and everything is loose. So we're going to go ahead and just get it on out of here. Okay, so now we're going to get started on. We're going to get the starter off here, get access to that flywheel, and get those. Now I can slide this around a little bit in this truck bed as well, and I'm just going to get that one back on there. Probably going to take this thing to the car wash. This is one of the nastiest engines that I've seen. So, and then it'll just be the reverse process. We'll just get it back on the lift and do the same thing that we did taking it out. Just pop it right back over there. You just got a couple of 13 millimeters holding that starter. You don't need to take it completely loose. And you reach in here and get this rubber piece out of your way. It looks like that. And then you can get in here to these very easily. You can see the first one right there. Got a 21 millimeter on this. And I'm just going to turn them and take them one by one. Okay, these 14s are super tight. You'll want to get you a cheater bar. You can use a wrench or a ratchet, whatever you want. And you'll need to get that 21 over here and brace it and hold it on this side while you're breaking it loose. Okay, this had been taken off once before. One of these was a 14 and the others were 15s. And the last one, so these things are really soft. And I didn't have a 6-sided, I was using a 12-sided. So I'd recommend getting a 6-sided short to fit in there. I had a long, but it wouldn't fit in there. But anyways, the last one rounded off to where I couldn't get it. And if it happens to you, you'll probably have to get you an extractor. But I just cut it off of there. And I was curious as to what it was going to look like after I cut it off, but it flew somewhere and I couldn't find it. But anyways, I've got them there, and we're going to go ahead and start taking the bolts out of this thing now. And another thing, I don't know, I'm going to find some different locking nuts. These things don't even have much of a little flat spot on it, but I'm going to find, the metal on them is so soft, and I've never had one of these flywheel nuts to even strip on. This is the first time this has ever happened. You know, luckily I'm not using that one, that torque converter anyways, so I've got the other one so I just could cut it off of there, but I've never had that happen before. I mean, they were extremely tight. I can forewarn you now, they're extremely tight. Okay, I'm using a 1/2 inch on these. Just kind of numbering them as I take them out as well. Just going to put numbers on them so I put them back where they go. Now remember, I already took those bottom 3 out, so I don't have to worry about messing with them. And I'll do the same thing putting it back in, just because it makes it a little easier. And I'm just working my way around. And some of these are hidden behind the hose here, but we can get to them. Okay, we got a couple pesky 8mm in this bracket right here that's in the way. It's blocking this one bolt back here. Okay, like I said, this thing's very easy to slide around in the bed of this truck with this plastic thing. I'm just getting these last 2 that are in the back, coming through the back side here. I've done got this one. I'm getting ready to take this one right here out. Like I said, I was using a 1/2 inch on all of these here, and that's my last one, but then I got the bottom ones. I just labeled them all as to where they went. We're going to go ahead and get this thing separated here. Okay, here it is separated out. And there's that one I cut off. Here's the other part I found. Well, I cut it so much and then it just snapped, which I'm glad it did. But those were extremely tight. I was using a 2-foot cheater bar on my ratchet to get them loose, so that's why it rounded. I'm not using those same nuts anyways. But we're just going to swap places. I'm going to scoot this one back there. We're going to get that one up here and just go ahead and start bolting it up. And I'm not going to worry about this rear seal at this point because I didn't see any major leakage or anything. But you know, doing yours, you can do what you want. It's yours. But it's definitely you know, not a bad idea sometimes to stick one on there while you're at it. Okay, this for the motor mount in the back will have to be swapped over. I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm just going to go ahead and slap it over there. There may be some other things, but I don't really see anything else that sticks out at this point. Before you hook this up, make sure, absolutely sure, that your torque converter is completely seated. Make sure that make sure to spin it a few times, make sure that it's seated back in there. And like right here, this is a dowel that got stuck off of the other engine when they pulled it. I've already got those up here, so I don't need that, so I'm going to have to remove that before I go to trying to hook it up here. Okay, I just took a rag and wiped this surface down and cleaned it, and I took a file and lightly went over this edge to make sure there's no burrs or dings and wiped it. And I'm going to put some grease on these, and then we're going to go ahead and slap it up here now. Okay, when mating this up, you just need to get you a few blocks under the front, kind of level it out. And you'll just get you some 2x4s and pieces of wood and just kind of get it halfway level. I guess you could use your hoist too if you wanted to hook that up, but usually it's not that difficult just to slide it. You get your dowels lined up halfway on the sides, and then get you a bolt started up top somewhere to kind of hold it and just kind of work it in. It's usually not that difficult. This thing weighs about 250 pounds. I forget to mention, make absolutely sure that your hole on your flywheel right here is in this window, and make absolutely sure that the stud on that torque converter is lined up with that hole. Okay, start your long bolts first that go into your dowels. You got that one there, and you got this one right here coming from this back. It's a good idea to get those started first. Okay, so we got those dowel bolts tightened in there, and again, make sure to watch that stud. Save yourself a lot of grief, make sure, because it will try to hang up on that hole sometimes, so you got to watch it and make sure it doesn't get in a bind. So we got those two that go through the dowels. These other ones we'll go ahead and get in, and we're Loctiting everything as we're putting it back together. Okay, so I'm just going through here torquing these flywheel nuts to the torque converter. I'm going 27 foot-pounds on these. I torqued the transmission at 45, and I'm using some different nuts than the ones that were on there. I can show you this one, and these just seem to be wanting to round off too easy, so I don't like them. So I'm putting some different back on here, and those are M10 by 1 inch, in case you needed to know. Okay, so we're ready just to start putting this back in. I got the starter back on. You notice I took this and sprayed it off. It was really nasty. Took it to the car wash. But I think I've got everything I need on here, and the transmission's bolted up. So we're going to go ahead and work on getting it back in at this point. Okay, I'm going back in here, and I found it easier to kind of have it at a little bit of an angle with the front of the engine out farther, and just kind of working it in and under where that mount's going to go there. Okay, so I'm working it back in. I've got this first bolt, and these just kind of loose here, and the exhaust, I'll just line that up when I get underneath. But I think I'm going to go ahead and try to get this this transmission mount started over here on this side. I'm just torquing these down here. I'm also putting this high strength Loctite. I noticed that this one had vibrated off of the old transmission, so this high strength, I mean, they won't come off of there with that stuff. It really locks them on there. Once it dries, it's there. So yeah, I tightened them down to like 85 foot-pounds, and we got the one over there. We're going to go ahead and get that one snugged down, and the one in the back there will be real easy. We'll get to that one next. Okay, so I'm just using a jack to get this bolt that goes through here where it's loose. I just got a jack and a board under there, getting that, and it's got this thing that locks it, and we're just going to go ahead and tighten that down. Just fasten up this center mount here. This one's very easy to reattach. It pretty much just pops right back up into place just as soon as you get the other mounts lined up. Okay, I'm just getting ready to hook up these 3 lower transmission bolts that we had taken out. Got Couple on each side, and that one right there. We're just going to be using some medium Loctite on these. Okay, we've got these two that go on the back exhaust back there, and we're just fixing to crawl under there with that extension and get these put on. Okay, laying underneath here, you can reach right up here and get them started by hand, and then just get back here with the extension, finish snugging them down. And this, like I said, pretty much just lines itself back up when you get the engine set on the motor mounts. Okay, I'm going to be working on taking this transmission pan off. I got a filter I got to put on here. I probably could have took it off when I had it out. I didn't really think about this frame being in the way. So now I'm wishing I would have just took it off when I had it out, but I really wasn't thinking it was going to be a problem. But yeah, it's going to be a little bit more difficult now because it's sitting right here over this frame. It's right smack in the way of all these bolts. Okay, so I'm still back here taking these bolts out. It turned out that I had to take my center mount and the top mount back loose and jack this thing up because there just wasn't enough room to get to this bolt right here. So anyways, I'm going to go ahead and get the rest of these out. Okay, so I'm just getting ready to put this filter on here. I took a wire wheel and cleaned this pan up. Got all that excess silicone off of there. And I've just been working up under here. I'm just taking this and scraping all the way around it, and that usually gets about 90% of it. And I'm going to take a little bit of starter fluid or brake cleaner and clean that off a little bit. And we're going to pop our new filter in there, and we'll see about getting this thing set. I really wanted to get this done tonight so this can set up and cure. I usually like to let mine set for about a day before giving it the final torque. Okay, so if you're replacing your filter, you should have something that looks something like this, and just a little bit of light fluid around that seal. It's got a pin right there to locate it. And you'll know it when it snaps in there. And then just put this where it goes. And that's all there is to it. And you can see how that starter fluid cleaned that up pretty good. And now finally, thank goodness, we're ready to get our black gasket maker on here and get this pan into place. Okay, so I got a good bead. I've actually got the gray stuff I'm using, and it ain't pretty, but I want to make sure this thing ain't gonna leak. Okay, so we got the pan on there, and I've just finger tightened, and you can kind of look around and see that you got good coverage and that it's squishing out evenly. But I'm gonna just let it set for a day, and I'll come back and I'll torque it down. Probably only go like 96 inch-pounds, or maybe even less, maybe like 80 on those. But it's going to be, I don't even know how many I'm going to be able to get my torque wrench to. It's kind of difficult to get to there, but we'll follow up. Okay, so we've let this set up for a day, and I'm just back here torquing these down to 96 inch-pounds. And I can get to most of them. There's like maybe 2 or 3 here that I'm just going to have to tighten them by feel with a little ratchet, but just been going through here in a crisscross pattern and torquing all these down. Like I said, I've just got this lifted up as far as the engine mount will let me, you know, just a little bit, because that you can get in here probably with some swivels, but this is really tight, and I believe it's easier just to go ahead and take that center mount and this mount over here and just lift it up just slightly. It makes things a lot quicker. So we're going to finish torquing this, and then we'll move on. Okay, with that transmission pan torqued, I'm just going ahead and getting this jack to align for my mount here so we can get that bolt in. And in case you were thinking, you know, this silicone would be dried up, you can still see that stuff squishing out even after this set for over a day. So okay, right now I'm just reattaching this little bracket right here that holds all these wires and stuff, and it's just got a couple little 8mm. Okay, so just reattaching this shifter cable here to where it goes, and we've got we got our bolt started right here using medium Loctite on these, and put our cable back here. This is one of the first things we want to route back, and we got the little spring that has to go on the end down here. Okay, and there we have our spring in place. It just slips right on there, and we're just going to go ahead and tighten these 10mm down. So it should look something like that when you get it back on there. Okay, and I'm just going ahead and getting these heater hoses on now, and this is the top one here. And we're going to go ahead and start hooking some wires back up. On these vacuum hoses, I just took them loose at a few points where I needed to, so I didn't have a whole lot of these here to put back. I'm just going ahead and routing this fuel line back up through here. I'm going to go ahead and make that connection. Okay, and don't forget these grounds. There's one big one here. It's going to attach to this bolt on this bracket on the left side, and then there's this one that comes off of this harness, and we're going to go ahead and connect them. Just routing this harness back into its places, starting with these two connectors back here on the back of the transmission. We're going to go ahead and just fasten these here down. And just make sure they snap in good. And then we're just going to get to work on these up here. And I'm labeled everything, but I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory where they go just by the size. So I'm just going to go ahead and connect everything up here on this front, and then we'll have this this also runs up to our coils from this side, so we'll need to route this back underneath here and get it back up here to our coil packs. It's not a bad idea to hold on to this shift mechanism sensor, because these are bad. I've had them go out, so it's a good idea to hang on to the one off your original. Okay, I'm just reattaching this little extension piece down here, and I'm just going to route this back up here to this one right here. Just make that connection. Okay, I've got everything on the transmission. I'm just up here making some connections that I've got up here now, and we're going to go ahead and get these coil packs also, but we just got a few connections up here we got to make. Okay, so I reconnected another vacuum hose. I connected these two wires, I connected it right here, and we made a connection right here. Coil packs are back connected now. Okay, we're moving over to our box here. We've got a few connections we got to make. We've got these, they're going to get attached there. We've got a harness here. and we've got a ground cable that's got to get reconnected right up here on this bolt. Okay, and those are reconnected on ground. I think I had mentioned this thing. It's got a little locking tab. You just push in and this flips up and you pull it straight up off of there. Okay, I'm over here on this side. I'm just reconnecting this thing first. It just goes right here. I just had to disconnect this for slack when taking the motor out. Okay, so I had a ground I had to put back here, and there's a wire that runs right under here back over to a connector back there. So I was just making some connections on my windshield wiper bottle and the horn connections, and I believe the next thing I'm going to do is get over here and reconnect my Freon lines that I took loose, and we're probably going to work on getting the belt back on as well. Okay, so we got our power steering pump back on here. We just had the 3 bolts, 2 the top, 1 the bottom, reconnected for this AC. This is for our headlight, and we're going to go ahead and make this connection right here. Okay, I'm just kind of doing a final check down to make absolutely sure I've got everything that I need to get connected. Well, I've got it at this point, because once you start getting the front on, it's just real hard to get in here. And you can see how difficult this map sensor here is to get to. You can't hardly see it. That's what makes things so difficult. As you start getting the front on there, you can't really see what's going on. So definitely want to make sure that I've got everything connected that I need to, and these wires here is just the ones that are hooking to the front of the radiator fans, etc. I think I'm going to go ahead, like I said, get that belt on because it might be slightly easier. So we'll go ahead and do that. Just wanted to give you a view of this with this front end off. So we've got the most of everything connected. Hopefully we're going to get the front on here pretty quick, and we'll get some fluid in that transmission and get this thing tested out here shortly. Okay, so we're just getting this front piece back on here, and I've just kind of got it set on a bucket to kind of help with installation. And just got a few connections here I've made. Put the Freon line. I made the connection here at the coolant hose, and that's why I say having it out here is easier for now because I got more room. And now we're going to go ahead and see about getting it connected right here, and then we'll get our other connectors and coolant hose up here. So not a whole lot, and then we've just got a couple of bolts that go up there. I said always put your bolts where they go, or you'll lose them. Okay, so I've made my couple electrical connections on the fan. I've just kind of got it set up here right now, getting ready to hook these transmission lines. Got one there, and I've still got it loose where I can back it up if I need to, if I need some slack to make something easier. And then I've got this connection right here that I have to make on my Freon. And that's the last one of those right there. So I was just routing this sensor back out here, connecting it here and here. Got one behind this 10mm here we got to reconnect. Okay, so there we have that. We just routed it back through there. We'll just put this little cover back on here. I'm reattaching these cooler hoses. Short one just goes to the lower one, and this long one goes up here to this upper spout. Okay, I was just reattaching this upper radiator hose. Okay, I'm just putting this front bumper support on here, and it's got the 4 bolts on each side. Pretty straightforward. We got to get our bolts back into the radiator support, so I have to pull that up a little bit. Okay, I think I'm going to stop on this here for now, and I'm just going to go ahead and work on getting my CV axles and stuff back in, and getting all that done where I can at least have it, where I can start getting some transmission fluid in here and maybe start running it through some gears and see how it does. And then we may just go ahead and get the wheels on before just connecting everything, 'cause if I have a problem, I can see a little bit better with all the headlights and everything out. So I think I'm just going to leave it like this for now until I get it tested out a little bit. Okay, I'm just getting ready to put this driver's side CV axle in, and you want to make sure that you put some new output seals or CV axle seal on there. They're only about 10 or 13 bucks a piece, and you'll want to put a new one on each side. Also make sure to put some clean transmission fluid on that seal before you slide it in. So we're getting ready to go in here, and I've got it where I can just take this bottom bolt loose. It's a 15 that runs to this. I'm just going to take this bolt out, and I can come up between these forks, and we're just going to go back in there. I'm going to knock it in with my rubber mallet. So first I'm going to take that 15 millimeter. It's right there. We're going to take that out so we can go in between those forks. Okay, you have to watch your brake line when doing this, because you do have to pull this on down to get some slack. I probably recommend just removing your brake caliper when doing this, just to make it a little bit easier so you'll have more slack. But I just come through this side, come up through that fork. And I'm just going to get my rubber mallet and hit it right here and knock it back in there. Okay, you come in here and look, and it should look about like that. So just hit it on the end with the rubber mallet until you get it knocked back in there all the way, just like that. Okay, go ahead and grease your splines up and around that, and we're going to go ahead and slide it back into the hub here. Okay, so we just lift this up and we get this 15 millimeter bolt, long bolt, back through there, and then we're going to go ahead and work on popping this top part back in up here. And also I got the axle nut back on. We're going to get that tightened down. Okay, so I'm just retightening the stabilizer link. Those are 14s, and went ahead and tightened that. I'm putting these at like 45 foot-pounds. I'm not sure on the exact. And I've got this brake line. I'm going to refasten it right here. Okay, so we got that reattached. We got our ABS cable reattached there. Got these torqued 45 foot-pounds. So we're done on this. Don't forget to put a cotter pin in your tie rod. One was missing when I got this car, so I'm going to put a cotter pin back in there. Okay, so we got the passenger side CV axle, and I'm going to be putting, I got some grease on that piece right there. That's the end. It's going to go on there. So this is a new one. I had to get a new one for the side. So we're going to go ahead and just take a rubber mallet, and we're going to knock this onto that clip. I got a lot of grease on there, but there's a C-clip on there, and you want to try to keep it pointed upwards for whatever reason it says. So we're going to go ahead and knock this, and we'll know it when it gets fully together, because this will be almost flush with that. Like I said, it's definitely easier, I've found, just to do this out here on the ground and then put the whole long piece into the car. So we're going to go ahead and just knock this together So just using a rubber mallet because you don't want to damage your end down there, and it will go together. So there we have it. Got it knocked flush with that, and so it took a few whacks, but once it got started, it went right on. So now we're going to go ahead and work on getting this up into the car. So we've got 2 bolts that we have to bolt to the back side of the engine once we get it set up in there. And again, like with the other side, make sure that you got a new CV axle seal on here, and make sure that you got clean transmission fluid. We're just going to come through here kind of like we did the other side. I do have the brake caliper off, which is better, and we're just going to come right through here. So I'm just working this long piece up through here, and I'm going to hop underneath here in a second and get the end popped into that transmission down there, and it just slides right in. And then we'll get on these 2 14 millimeters and we'll get them back on the block, and use Loctite as well. Okay, again, grease your splines before you pop it in here. Okay, as far as these bolts up here go, you should be able to just reach right on up through here and get to them and tighten them. That's how I'm doing it. Okay, so we just lift it up, slid this bolt back through the bottom like we did on the other side. Get our little locking tab on this side. We're going to tighten it up. That's a 15 millimeter. Okay, so we're just working on getting the caliper back on over here. We got to reconnect this ABS cable here. We're getting our tie rod, upper ball joint torqued down, and then looks like we're about finished up over here on this side as well. Okay, now we're ready to start getting some transmission fluid in here. We're going to start out putting about 4 quarts in or so, and we'll run it through some gears and stuff and add a little bit as we need it. Okay, and here it is running, and I'm going to have to run it through some gears and get it checked out, and we'll refill it as needed. Okay, so I've took it just up the road just a little bit and been driving it around, and I'm just adding a little bit more transmission fluid. So far it's doing real well, and I'm just going to show you how it's running now here in a minute. You'll also notice I went ahead and I got the bumper and everything back on here. Of course, we've got all the tires and everything, all this put back together. So right now I'm just kind of testing it out and seeing how it's going to do. Okay, and here we are driving this down the road. I've already been driving it around and filling it with transmission fluid, and I got that lined out. But before, we didn't have any reverse, couldn't even get out of 3rd gear, and it's a nice feeling. I don't know if you can see this here, but it's a nice feeling when you can fix something and get it back working again. Let's see if we can get it up in the 5th here. And it's been driving real smooth so far. And working like it should. So I'm very pleased with this project. It's shifting up, shifting down, shifting into overdrive, and it's been doing really well. Well, that's going to conclude this video. It's a good sounding little car, good running car, other than, you know, just had the transmission was out. Want to have to clean it up a little bit, but you know, very happy with it, the results. And said if you found it helpful, you know, give it a like, and I thank y'all for watching. And one more thing before I forget, when I was removing this transmission, just to keep the video from going on so long, I did the CV axles separately for the drivers and the passenger as far as the removal. So if you need that information, you can check out those other two videos. And again, thank you for watching.